it was really refreshing to have a conversation with my next guest, who is a professional business coach, a life coach. She practices evidence based coaching, which I learned is client driven, it's confidential, and recommendations are not given without permission. So, do we choose a coach or do we choose a mentor? What's the difference between the two? Well, hold on, because Dr. Stephanie Atkinson Austin, and she told me that I can call her Dr. A, is going to help us understand the difference between the two.
Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. This podcast was created for the boomer woman leaving corporate, and now you're looking to reinvent yourself, become an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. Well, each episode will leave you with clarity. You will come away with the yes, I can and yes, I will reinvent myself mindset. So come on, let's do this. I'm your host, Margot Levette.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Margot Levette here. As you probably already know, all of March, I'm in collaboration with Womel magazine, and what they have pulled out all the stops as they are really paying attention to 25 powerful women to watch the month of March. But I say, watch these women because their footprint runs just that deep. Watch them for the rest of your days. And so in keeping with presenting these women to the world, I have Dr. Stephanie A. Atkinson Austin. She is one dynamic woman. Dr. A, she told me that I can call her Dr. A. Dr. A is a coach's coach. So I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for being here and opening up my eyes, the world's eyes, as to how you use your resources to help women reach their goals, realize who they are. So thank you for being here today. Can you hear me, Dr. Stephanie? I think we ran into some. Dr. Stephanie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Yes, we had some, the weather's kind of dicey here, and I think it's affecting our connection. So we're not going to let that stop us at all. We're going to forge on because you are bringing us 20 years of experience coaching. You are not a novice at all. And it is your goal to help others achieve their goal of developing themselves. So my first question, we hear from different camps, schools of thought. There's a difference between mentoring and coaching. What do you say to that?
Yes, I think there is a vast difference between mentoring and coaching, and oftentimes folks kind of use them synonymously, but I like to separate them. When I go to mentor is a person that says, look what I've done, how I've done it, and this is how you do it. That's good. That works in a lot of environments. But as a coach, we're driven by the client's desire to achieve a goal, whatever that goal might be. In the case, I practice evidence-based coaching, meeting, and I'm going to use a choice client or the person where they are. What is it they want to achieve? How do I help them achieve those goals? And it's a partnership. I only make recommendations and suggestions with permission, whereas a mentor will just say, I want to start a business. Okay, start a business. Here's a form, fill it out. Where a coach may say, where are you in the business planning process? Do you have a business plan? But all based on questions that are goals for the client. It's client driven. It's definitely confidential, but it's really meeting that person where they are and what is it they want to achieve. So I think that is how I differentiate the two. I'm also a member of the International Federations of Coach. And in that environment, there's a code of ethics that we abide by. And I definitely like to share that with any person that I'm working with or a client, so to speak, to ensure them that this is all confidential, and that it's driven by the person. What is it they achieve? How do we get there? And in that, we build some robust resources. What I find is people are very resourceful. They just may not know that they're resourceful. They have a lot of resources. And with the permission, if they ask and give me permission, okay, here's some other things you may want to take a look at. A real quick example. I was working with a client once who had been in corporate America for a while and wanted to transition into become an entrepreneur. That person had received their CPA certification and wanted to kind of do things on their own. And so we worked through multiple steps as comfortable and found out the things that they needed to do. One of the things with those cold calls, as we talk about in marketing and serving oneself, is that in those cold calls, what are you going to say? How are you going to advertise yourself? And part of the person's advertisement was local. So it was one of the questions, and sometimes we give quote unquote homework to the person, which are just steps for them to follow through. And it was like, okay, so practice. What would you say? Did you draft a flyer of some sort of announcement about your services? And so, we work through different types of strategies based on, like I said, once again, I'm always going to come back to this. What is it that the person or the client needs? What are their goals and objectives? But more importantly, is how much energy do they have in achieving these goals and objectives? And I think that is a little bit of a nuance to coaching versus mentoring.
I love that. And because so many times we do yoke the two together. So when a person is seeking guidance, they want to get to that next level, then it behooves them to know, okay, this person is going to give me a roadmap. And but then what I really need is a coach. That's what I found out when I decided that I was going to leave corporate and I was going to become a podcaster, come hell or high water. It was not a mentor that I needed. It was a coach that I needed. Someone who, as I hear you say, will meet you where you are and work from that point on. That's valuable information. Dr. A, on your website,
yes.
I love when you say, you may think you have the edge, but could you do more? What does that mean? It's a loaded question. I feel like it's just really full to make a person think. But what are you really getting at with that question?
I think it gets at the heart and the soul of the person. I think a lot of folks have a lot of good, wonderful ideas. The strategies they've implemented in their life thus far have been great. It's made them successful. But what's that deep desire? And I'm a person that I feel a calling on my life, my vocation. My called vocation is educating and coaching. But did I get to, and do we got to get to that place where you're making a transition of something that you really, really, really want to do, but how do I do it? And part of that is having those reflections upon what got you to where you are. So now you have another set of goals and objectives, and how do we get you there? And one thing, and I kind of go back a little bit on the previous question in regards to mentoring and coaching. And in coaching, it's a partnership. It's not just a person saying, oh, you want to become an entrepreneur, you want to transition from this line of work to another line of work, you just want to get employed. But it's meeting that person and having a strategy that you build together. And that's what I call that partnership. And from that process is developing those robust resources to help you get to where you need to go. And always asking that permission of the individual before you give a recommendation. It's problem solving at its deepest core, and having that person really understand they have a lot of resources already that they can draw from, and then we build from there.
I keep hearing you use the word ask their permission. So in this partnership, you're not just thrusting you and your ideologies and even methods or resources upon that person. You're asking for permission. I never heard that before. Never heard that before.
It's extremely important to ask permission because it helps develop the partnership between the coach and the person that they're working with, and having that trust. And that's extremely important when you're trying to build that relationship. And a lot of things that we do in life are about relationship building. And part of that is to let them know, I mean, I'm here, I'm part of your team, but I'm not just going to, as you said, thrust my ideology, my step-by-step methods of how I became successful, because they're in a different environment, because they are their environment, and things that I've gone through and what they're going through may not be the same, and nor would I want to share that type of empathy without permission.
Wow. This thing runs deep. It really, coaching runs deep, and a person should really think about a person before they even sign on with them. How deep is this person willing to go with you? You are one extraordinary coach. Would you be comfortable in saying that your coaching ideology, your skills, your resources came from the very fact that most of this began with your career in the Navy? And thank you for your service. Truly. What impact does your service have with how you built your business and interact with women now?
Right. Yeah. I spent 20 years in the Navy Reserves, and I retired. And prior to actually retirement, I accepted a position at a private institution, accredited institution. And some of those skill sets that are part of my toolbox, it still kind of goes back to helping other people achieve their goals. So whether I was working with a student or a faculty member or a staff member, what are our goals and our resources. So I've been coaching for a number of years before I actually knew what coaching was, as well as getting my certification in evidence-based coaching. And I just kind of as a foundation, it was just my upbringing of helping others, and the service to the military. That was something that, and I kind of say jokingly, my family was like, "You're in college. Why are you going to go do this?" It was something I needed to do on my own and prove myself to myself. And if other people prove, great. But it was just, and a lot of people are at that place in their lives. I want to venture off and do X, Y, and Z because I need to fulfill a personal goal or objective. Just have that satisfaction deep down inside yourself and your soul of what you, and I call it, my call to vocation is a service one, transformational one. And so I just kind of build upon that. So from the military to a private education sector to, I spent a number of years at the California Community College arena, up and down the state, across the nation, doing some trainings and things of that nature. So that is it's just what's inside of me. How do I help other folks develop the skill sets that they need, take the actions that they need for them to complete their goals and their desires?
Well, we definitely need people such as yourself. I'm sitting here thinking about where we've come the last year, how it just has tossed everything up in the air. I feel that we need coaches such as yourself, because people need to be able to get their feet back on the ground. And since you're not intruding in and imposing your ideas upon them, do you think that there is, where are we going to be as a society if we don't take on coaches such as yourself to get ourselves reacclimated to what we've just come out of?
Yeah, I think the kind of the adage, it's going to soon become old, is the new normal, you know. And I think a lot of things that we have as people have experienced over the last year, what was also something that drove me to writing my book, talking about just COVID-19. And I cannot believe, but I also am a believer that nothing just happens by coincidence. But today marked the 1 year that our country really announced and got involved with COVID-19, and we had the stay-at-home order. I cannot believe it has been a year. Although I can't believe it's been a year because I was tripping on the sofa. But, I think what it's going to do is help people re-event, reimagine, just take that step or two backwards to see where we are, and how do they want to proceed and move forward. So, in saying that, I was told by a colleague one time, everybody needs a coach, and it's true. I have several coaches that I use for different reasons, different strategies that I'm trying to work through. And I think in our society now, because of what's happened over the last year, it's just put us in a different place in time and mindset, one that's of reflection, but more importantly, how do we move forward? What actions and steps do we take to move forward? And I think coaching is one of those interventions that are very helpful and can be helpful. And in the coaching world, we say that everybody needs a coach. Everybody's going to see it differently. I had someone reach out to me just a couple days ago as an entrepreneur and wanted some help. Of course, I send them my invoice, my contract, which are my contract that calls an agreement. It's agreement between that person and me to work through whatever it is they need to work through. But also knowing if I get to that place, and I think this is another thing that's different between mentoring coaching, is that we travel down several different paths to get to where you need to go. Sometimes they're very emotional. They strike a nerve or a chord with a person, but it gets to a place where, as a professional, I say kind of jokingly in the contract, I can't fix you. So if you've got some underlying other issues, I will recommend you see someone else. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist by any means. I'm just a coach.
As you spoke, I thought of that. I thought there are many of us before we can go forward, and I'm speaking from personal experience, before you can really, excuse me, be dynamic and true to your progression and taking on a coach and become an entrepreneur, a podcaster. Those bears that growl at night and all those other things, you really do have to take care of them. And I deeply appreciate the fact that you say, take care of that while we work on you moving towards your next, by separating the two so that the one can come together and the person can move forward. I love that. Tripping on the sofa during the Damndemic. Let me say that again. This is your book. I love it. Tripping on the sofa during the Damndemic. My goodness. It's a unique diary chronicling some of the events and many of the emotions we all faced during the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020. Take us there. I was fascinated. We've all had these conversations, but you actually put it in book form. And I'm sure you're speaking of things that we've all had, conversations we've all had. So take us into your book, Dr. A.
Okay, so tripping on the sofa during the Damndemic. So it came about as I was on my sofa during the Damndemic, house, constrained, and news after news after news. And there's points in times I just had to cut it off because it got to be way too much, because we were living it. You need somebody to tell you, well, you can't go outside today. Well, fooling, we can't go outside today. But it helped me to reflect personally. And I thought, as the helpful person I try to be, what if I had already been compiling some notes from different experiences I've had. What if I wrote a book that could possibly help others? So in this book, I bring back two of my, I call them avatars or characters that I had from a previous book, What They Won't Teach You in Grad School, Trey and Felicia. And Trey and Felicia had met a number of years ago at a conference. And at that conference, which is not uncommon, they found that there were only two people of color in the room. There was hundreds of people at the conference. So they kind of became connected that way and had stayed in touch with one another. And then because Zoom is now a huge thing, their conversation and their dialogue takes place via Zoom meetings. And they bring up different topics and different things that they're experiencing during the COVID-19 pandemic. And my twist on that word was the Damndemic, because at the same time last year, we had a number of high profile murders of people of color. The George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. I mean, the list can go on and on. And so I interweave some of the social injustices that had transpired during this past year. But I think more importantly is a call of action. Okay, these things have happened. How do we as individuals, and I always like the kind of grassroots movement, a couple individuals, how do we move forward to make positive change? So there's some reflections from a person saying we're going through this pandemic with COVID-19. We don't know at that point, there had not been a vaccine, but we're just kind of waiting this thing out. How do you kind of start working yourself through that? So have people like take a reflection, because we've all been through something that was maybe not positive in our lives. How do you draw from that experience? What lessons did you learn from that experience? How can you build upon those outcomes? And can your actions be different to result in a different outcome? So I always like to get to those questions via what I call courageous conversations. And so those are conversations that Trey and Felicia have throughout the book. And they hit upon losing a job, finding that they were part of an organization that was possibly corrupt, being that the parent that was homeschooling their kids through their observations, and how did those various social injustices were perceived by them, or that they could reflect upon, that could help one move forward. So it's one of those books, and I kind of think I'm somewhat creative, was just having that conversation with two friends around COVID-19, but more importantly, what we have now called the Damndemic. So it was a pandemic, and there were some damning actions, social injustices that happened through 2020, but it also goes back to make us think some of these things are not new. But I think because folks were stuck at home, per se, that they could have a deeper dive, if you will, into what was really going on. So the various murders, the social injustice, the Black people, Lives Matter movement, so forth and so on. For those of us who've been around for a couple of years, this is not new. It's just, I think it was heightened and more visible because of COVID-19.
Yeah, it definitely, the sound was very loud as far as the pandemic and the social injustice. And it was almost deafening when you put the two together. So kudos to you for putting this in a perspective where we all can reflect. How did it make us feel? Dr. A, do you feel that we have to pay attention to how we felt as we were tripping on the sofa so that we can actually build out and work with a coach and build our lives out from this point on?
Right. I think the reflections give us a place where we can resonate from. And so, like with every chapter, I'm happy to think about this, ponder about this. Did it resonate with you? And what did? And like, what could be the next steps? Because I think everything has a foundation that you have to build upon. And so, reflecting on the past, not dwelling in the past, but reflecting in the past helps you put that first kind of foundation or that stone down that you can build upon and move forward. One thing I've come to know, and I work a lot with a lot of young people, is their lack of true understanding of history. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to have an understanding of history in order to move forward. Yes. You know, you look at the March on Selma versus Black Lives Matter, you know. And someone said this, and I'm not sure if it's a proverb, but I want to say that there's nothing new under the sun. Mm-hmm. So, and knowing that, okay, and I talk about this a lot when I deal with business clients, and they're wanting to move forward, especially within an organization. So what have you done? What were some of the positive things came out of that action? What are some of the negative things? How can you move forward now? And so I think that's very important. You have to take in consideration those things so that you can move forward.
Yes. Everything that I hear you say, I take it back to your coaching technique. And they are robust resources. I heard you say, use the word robust a couple of times. I've never heard an approach, a definition of coaching the way you framed it, the way you handle your clients, the way you facilitate their movement forward. A lot of deep dive searching on their own. It sounds like it's time for people to really take a look at who they are and own what they want. And as you say, be ready to put the work in so that they can meet success. Is that what I hear you say, Dr. A?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
One final question. I'm looking at the time, and I think
it's in all of us, but yes.
No, go ahead. You were starting. There's a time, because of this internet thing, there's a time lag. Go ahead. You were starting on another thought.
So you were saying about building those robust resources and having the person do their own personal deep dives in order to move forward. Yes. I think, and that comes from the energy. If it's something you really, 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 really want to do, you'll put the work in to get there. And so my coaching approach is about that. So I'm always asking, how much energy? Okay, you want to do X. Well, how much energy do you have to put toward X? As we build together a strategy, and it's a partnership. It's not you come to me and I've got all the answers. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important to the client, that they're helping themselves. That's kind of self-discovery of who they are and what they really, really would like to accomplish and achieve.
Sounds like there's no room for the tire kickers. What's your energy like? What are you investing? Tire kickers are not going to put in that much energy. It's the ones that have a goal in mind, and they're tired, sick and tired of, as they say, sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's time to make a change. So Dr. A is the person to get in contact with. One last question. I was listening to the news this morning, and all of us in high school as seniors, we all worked. We all had some kind of a job. But my eyebrows went up when I understood that seniors in high school are now taking on full-time, part-time jobs just to help their families. There were 2 interviews. One young lady was in tears because she was working to help her mom, who is a very strong woman. The other young lady said she's working to help her mom because she fears homelessness. So what do you say to the young ladies who are watching you, who are moving forward as much as they can, but this is their new normal now? What do we say to that?
Mm. It is life that many of us have known, coming from a family with folks that had degrees, some that didn't have degrees, some people that just made it to high school if they made it that far, maybe middle school. And, you wanting to have that desire to go to college, but the finances weren't there. You did have after school jobs. I think now students have to be a little more creative because of the COVID-19 and the restrictions that it has. It's not an easy task, but it goes back to folks. What is it you really, really want? How do you have to get there? But there's a lot of different agencies and programs out there. Sometimes I'm working with a young lady now she applied, so we're waiting this month to see if she got into college, and she's part of a organization that I help support, and that these students have either been homeless, they're part of the foster youth program, single parent households, and very similar to the story that you're sharing with me. They got to help their families. It comes like first and foremost. But I think that there's programs out there for folks that fall into these various categories that will help. I just saw this morning locally where there was a group that was really focused on Latinx students that are very similar to the story that you're sharing, to help them break down the language barrier and help the families understand the process that it takes to go to college. And it's very similar. Like I said, when I help young folks, here's a process that you can go online and you can go to a website and you could put in your profile, what is it you want to do? And they will send you information based on your profile for scholarships. I've worked with students that they said, hey, I filled out about 20 scholarships and I got 2. Well, those dollars were dollars more than they had before they started, but they had to put the work in. So it's about putting the work in. So there's all kinds of scholarship opportunities out there for young folks, and they're in different categories and pockets. I just shared with the young lady that I'm working with, there was one that came up for HBCUs, and it was just do an essay, put it out, put your information in there, see what happens. So I always want to be encouraging of our young folks, and knowing if there's a will, there's a way. But it's all about putting the work in. So you fill in 15, 20 essays and you get a scholarship on 2 from 2. That's 2 more, scholarship opportunities you had that you didn't have prior to that. So I'm always optimistic and hopeful for our young folks, and also giving them a place and a time to hear their voices.
Well, I tell you, as a coach, you are a coach's coach. I hear and I feel the optimism, not only for the young folks, but for those who are in need of guidance, and they are really ready to put in the work. They are ready to invest in that next. I keep hearing those two things, they have to be in place. So, Dr. Stephanie, I don't even know how to end this conversation. I really, really don't. Just one last word to motivate that woman who, and I don't even want to say the woman who's on the fence, because in my mind, you can't really motivate the woman who's on the fence as far as becoming, getting coaching. But that woman who is saying, today is the day, I'm pulling the trigger today. What do you say to her so that she can be the leader that she knows that she's destined to be?
Is it's making that effort, taking that step. Something that I kind of came up with is, so you took a step today. It may only be half the steps you took yesterday. Nevertheless, it is a step. It's a step forward. So I would say to them, step forward, reach out for coaching. For some people, it might be mentoring, but reach out, make that next step, and be willing to put in the work to reach your goals.
It's all about the work and the energy. Work is energy. Dr. Stephanie A. Atkinson Austin, thank you so very much. You have really given us a working definition of mentor coaching, and you have poured out to help us understand the depths of coaching, where it has to go so that we can reach our next. And to me, it helps us identify the coach and the coach. Oh my goodness. We need the coach. We don't need the lukewarm. We need the coach. So I thank you so very much. Thank you. It's no wonder that WOMEL chose you as one of the 25 women to pay attention to the month of March. And as I've been telling people, pay attention to these ladies the rest of your life and tell your friends and family about them because they're real powerhouses. So it's hard for me to stop talking. I have another question, but I am not going to ask that. Thank you, Dr. Stephanie. And thank you all for giving your attention. And I will see you on the next interview. Bye-bye now.
I want to thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Couple of things that I want you to do right now. Go to my website, pick up a copy of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Reinvention, how I went from game show hopping to international show host, author, and speaker in 1 year. Number 2, please freely listen to each and every episode. Share them out with your family, friends, the men in your lives. And then number 3, get in contact with me, one of the experts that have been on the show, because I want to make sure that you reinvent yourself. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.